Well, hey there and welcome. My gosh, hard to believe we're halfway through December. I hope you're ready not only for the end of the year, but for the start of 2022 in our job search. We have a lot to cover. This intense series started last week, so if you missed any of the sessions, just check over my YouTube channel. Probably the easiest place to see them all together, though they're also, of course, over on my Facebook and my LinkedIn as well. Wherever you're joining in today, welcome. Let me just share my screen. There we go, a little bit better. So again, welcome. Today we're going to talk about career evolution, and this is really how your career can change dramatically with the proper use of social media marketing integrated into how you might use LinkedIn. Here's the sessions left until the end of the year. You can take a quick look at that. All of those dates are over on my Self-Recruiter website as well. Just click the calendar tab. So tomorrow, gosh, we have a few other things this week. Supercharging your job search tomorrow. Exciting one to really know how to inject some adrenaline into your job search and really get it working for you. Friday, we're going to have a very special session of the Ask Self-Recruiter Q&A. So hopefully you tune in for that. And then next week, right before the holidays, we are going to do the paradigm shift in job search, how you directly market yourself to decision makers, and one more very special Ask Self-Recruiter Q&A session right before the holidays hit. And then we will see you in January after that. Unless, of course, I'm working with you as a client and I'm working through the holidays if we're working together. So career evolution, creating the advantage with social media marketing on LinkedIn. Now, we're going to teach you in terms of LinkedIn, but you should apply this knowledge, this process really to whatever platforms you're using for your job search, for your career. Another way to think about this is now that I have a LinkedIn profile, what do I do with it? You know, so often people will go, got to be on LinkedIn, got to be on LinkedIn. Not going to get hired if you're not on LinkedIn. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But then we build out a LinkedIn profile, or maybe they put a cursory profile up there and they go, I'm here. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening because your profile is very similar to those travel brochures. Probably not too recently, but stayed in a hotel that we can remember, and over in the lobby, over in the corner on top of some little machine, there's a little rack of brochures. Well, your profile probably sitting over in that rack gathering dust. Today's lecture is about how you draw people to your profile and use your profile really as an advertising and marketing tool. Though what you do with it is very, very important. Or another way, how do you take control of your career story? So I want you to think of all of these things. We're going to play just a really, really quick 2-minute little video. This is a video I had originally put together for Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. So you're going to hear me say the word business, your business. Just replace that word with your career brand. Each of us have a career brand we have to manage forevermore. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. Resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if your career brand is suffering from poor storytelling, it's not your fault, really. Most of us are far too emotionally close to our own story to really write an effective story. I know exactly who you should work with, and all my packages are over on the Self-Recruiter website, just under the Services tab. And if you need to chat before you know which one is right for you, send me a quick email and we'll set up a time to speak. A couple of the resources before we dive in. Over my LinkedIn, you can get to a number of articles that will help you in whatever your challenge might be in job search. So do check those out. Here is that 2-minute video. I'm going to bring this center stage for a second.
I'm John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about using LinkedIn and getting the best out of social media marketing. Your business is built on perception. Perception of the products or the services or of your reputation. Business today is judged by web presence, not just a business's website. In our traditional work life, we didn't hesitate to network with the right people when an opportunity arose. That chance to meet the right people that could help our career. But as a small business owner, sometimes it's all you. It becomes easy for us to prioritize networking away. Oh, not today. Until it's never on today's list. We have so many other hats to wear if we are to reach our dreams. And those other hats are certainly more important. More important. It's important for every small business person to network, to open doors that you may not have even imagined yet. You need to be reaching and communicating with current and potentially new customers or clients. You need to be out there contributing to the discussion about you. And with focus, it takes much less time than you really think to be effective. But you do have to take control. You have to develop your LinkedIn profile into a 3-dimensional sales brochure, all about you, that naturally drives the reader to a singular conclusion. If I work with, hire, or buy from this person, it's the best business decision I'll make today. Then make use of social media marketing tools built into LinkedIn to be sowing your value across the network in updates and postings and other shares that influence the perception of you. Well, there's much more to share as we're just getting started. Now imagine that you have this great communication platform. By the way, that's your great LinkedIn profile that positions both you and your business professionally and effectively. And think about the effects of using and implementing a sharing on a schedule or editorial calendar to simplify your messaging. That's a powerful voice to be heard that affects perception. What would you want others to be thinking of when they're thinking of you? That's the important question.
You know, that's an important piece to get us to start thinking about what we can do with social media. Today, we'll show you what you can really do in terms of your career, even if you'd like to not continue on the same path that you're on. If you'd like to change directions, go work for a different industry. We'll talk about today how you adapt what you share to show the epiphany in your direction. So let's talk a little bit about Self-Recruiter. This is really the umbrella for the entire lecture series. Today, we'll turn this lens, of course, to the right topic. But overall, what it is about taking control in your job search. It's about networking in a very different way, which is really better and proper use of LinkedIn from the connection standpoint to build this mountain of data that you can extract information from. Well, today, and in the LinkedIn lecture, that's typically what I'm talking about, extracting information from LinkedIn. Today, we're going to do the opposite. Today on the part 2 to my LinkedIn lecture, the Career Evolution lecture, it's really about what we choose to seed to LinkedIn through shares and posts and comments that somehow shift how people think about us. Of course, the other major component of being a successful self-recruiter is this concept of always keeping one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable. Those 4, 5, or 6 people that would scare you out of going after that job. Oh, they're going after the job. Oh, forget it. That person. We can beat those people that seem perfect very, very easily because those perfect people suffer from something called ego and arrogance, and they don't actually prepare. They wake themselves up in the morning, dust themselves off, and go, well, who are they going to hire? They're going to hire me. Then they don't actually do their homework. A little bit of planning, forethought, and strategy, you can outmaneuver them very, very quickly. Now, the secrets to refreshing our career story, well, we're going to have to go back and reinvent our whole narrative. So if we've not done that yet, do check out my resume renovation lecture. It'll give you a much deeper dive into restructuring your story itself. Also, my LinkedIn lecture will further that. But really now what we have to do once we have the correct storytelling in place across your resume, across your LinkedIn profile, is really put together a digital self-marketing campaign. Distasteful, right? I know. We're not, most of us are not Kardashians. I get it. But we have to drink maybe a little bit of that Kool-Aid. We have to understand the power of self-promotion, because that's how we're going to brand our career. That's how we're going to market our brilliance and get other people to see it. And that's exactly how we really begin to take control of the discussion, the perception, create engagement about us. But it's really a lot closer to that type of engagement. Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Meetup, all these things. Which one should I be using? Well, at a minimum, in job search and career, strongly recommend LinkedIn. I don't know how anyone would get hired in today's world without LinkedIn. You have a great resume, great background. Wow, fantastic. First thing they're going to do is grab your name and pop it in LinkedIn. Not in LinkedIn. Is this even real? Does this person even exist? Hard time competing with competitors without a LinkedIn profile. At the minimum, you need that. My additional view at a minimum is that you also need a Twitter account. And I'm not talking about the 147 tweets over the weekend type thing that occasionally happens. What I'm talking about is getting a Twitter account that you may never visit if you don't want to, connecting it to your LinkedIn. And then everything we talk about today as a sharing strategy, you let it flow seamlessly across LinkedIn. And with one toggle choice, even on the free version of LinkedIn, seamlessly goes out to Twitter, doubling your advertising with no additional effort. Now, what other platforms should you use? I don't know. We're all very, very different in what we do. If you're in creative, I don't know how you're not using Instagram as part of your whole recipe to show some creative aspect of who you are. Facebook, probably not. I have 2, 3, maybe even 4% of my clients that do use Facebook for career, but it takes an extraordinarily high degree of self-editing. I mean, I'm on Facebook and I never get to say anything fun or funny or anything. Oh, I like to use wit. I'm very sharp. But over there, it's like, did you write that? Did you think that was funny? It was funny at the time. We have to be very, very careful with Facebook. So for most folks, it's not the right one. But every week, you probably have at least this many more social media items or platforms or new apps joining the fray. This is not about losing all of your time on social media. What I recommend, if you're asking, I'm so glad you did, is 2 minutes per day. What I will teach you, you can execute in 2 minutes per day an effective social media campaign. Now, it does require about 2 hours of homework. So are you going to have to do the homework? Let's just explain social media a little bit. This is something I grabbed off of Facebook a couple of years back. I'm sure you've seen it probably before. Social Media Explained. It'll also show you how fast social media goes out of date. Twitter, I'm eating a donut. Facebook, I like those donuts. Foursquare, I don't know who uses that any longer, so we're going to ignore that one. Instagram, here's a vintage photo of my donut. Well, I don't know anybody that uses Instagram that way, even though that may be how it started. YouTube, well, here I am actually eating a donut. LinkedIn, my skills include donut eating. Pinterest, here's a donut recipe. Well, some people still use it for recipes. Last FM, I don't know who's listening to that. That's how quickly all these things may go out of date. Make sure you're on the right 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 platforms, something you can manage without really wasting more than 10, 15 minutes of your entire day. This is about influence in an effective way that doesn't utilize and eat up the only resource you have, which is your time. Now, why do we have to be there? Why is it so important? Well, all these things up here, but really look at the second from the bottom here. Staying on top of people's minds over time with seemingly little to no contact. You can feel like and seem like, and in the brains of others, stay right in the forefront of the mind. Them thinking about you. You know why? Because if you're constantly doing what I'll teach you today, they're looking over your shoulder to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, and that drives their perception of you, and that influences those decision makers. Now, our profiles themselves, because we have not only what we share on social media, we have the profile on social media. What if I have all these things? Should they all be the same? No, but they do have to work together. You can go look at me as an example, I'm in a lot of places. I'm certainly over on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all these things. You can go take a look at how I present myself on each one and see how they synergistically work together to create a whole person, not repeating the same story over and over, but slightly different angles of the story. So you're going to have to decide which ones. You're going to have to decide how they'll work together. So they need to make sense. This is a little bit of project management, a little bit of self-diagnosis. So when you're looking at your different platforms, are your target markets using it? What's your purpose for using this platform? What's your idea? That sounds a little strange. And what does that mean? Let me give you an Instagram example. I use my Instagram, and I think it's so important. It's actually one of the drop-down menus on my website, selfrecruiter.com. Instagram's right there. When you click on my Instagram, what's there? Absolutely nothing about what John does professionally. Why is it there? Because people either hire you or buy from you. In addition to you being capable and qualified, that's the absolute minimum. In addition to that, they buy from you or hire you because they like you. That comes from, number one, chemistry above all other things, and number two, confidence in you. So it's a little bit of, I want to know what drives you. Why are you interesting? What makes you tick? What gets your Energizer battery going? So you have to think about that. I'm using my Instagram to show the other piece of who John is. So you see me hiking up the Hudson Valley or climbing Yosemite out in Half Dome, those type of things, taking on different types of challenge, some physical, some even emotional, that are on the Instagram. All of that ties back into what I do professionally, taking on challenge. So it's just another way to show another aspect of who I am. What are your goals for that particular platform and the media that you're going to share? You have to flesh out a really good plan. About 2 hours of full homework here. Information is the new currency. As I mentioned before, normally when I mention that, I'm talking about extracting information from LinkedIn, but today it's really the opposite. We're going to become the injector of content into LinkedIn, which means you're going to have to become the content guru of you. And this means we can either reframe or retell or even reclaim some past greatness, in our career. So we have to think about all of that. But content is king, and it has to be visual. We're in a world, unfortunately, where no one really wants to read. So I have to have a little bit of sip of coffee. No one wants to read. So if no one wants to read, that presents quite a challenge. I think you just got a little bit of view there, both of my profile on LinkedIn and my profile on Twitter, which, while I may use the same headshot, they look different from one another, not the headshots, but the overall profile, because they belong together, but they have to present slightly differently. Then what I do over time is I let all this content that goes out over my LinkedIn flow to both platforms. And you can understand, seeing these things over and over and over again, all this type of content, what does it make you think about John? It shapes everything about what I do and what organizations I'm involved in. And also, hopefully, it drives potential clients to realize, of all those folks out there that could help me, which one's the real one that's actually going to help me? Which one's really going to transform my story so it all changes? We are this product. We cannot get away from this. But most of us are not very good product specialists. We don't know how to talk about that product, even though it's us. So to solve that, let's think about what we do better. We have to understand why you're either a standout in your field or going to be a standout in a new field. If you'd like to change directions, have to think about all of that. Let me just add something which may sound pretty negative, but we need some clarity here. 8, 10, 12, even 15 years in the same role, you know what that does not make you? An expert. You might be an expert, but just as likely not an expert. It does make you likely an expert in doing something one way. How often is that one way the right way? Not very often. That's a huge warning sign that you're going to have to work against. If you've got that type of a track record in your background, and you might go, wow, I look great, or you look stale and old as far as skill set and technique. So you may have to counter that in your storytelling so they don't fall in that trap of seeing you that way. So let's think about what we'd like to do. The world has changed in the last year and a half with the pandemic and everything else. We have to think about adaptability, new ideas, new ways of doing things. That's how we get hired today. And we can't lose our excitement. So it's your job also to be this cheerleader that is so excited about whatever it is you're going after. That's what's really driving you. Now, in perception management about how we'd like to be seen, and that's why we're doing the whole share process, we like them to quickly include all of these things about us. And of course, more than anything, they have to see us as the future of their company. So what we're trying to accomplish in their brain is not only being capable, qualified, interchangeable, but not just that, where you get less money. You don't want less money? Well, I'll take the one on the left, one on the right, doesn't matter, interchangeable. You have to not only communicate that we're that, but somehow exceptional, special, different, and understand small changes change all of this. So let's begin to do an inventory of things you might like to remind people or tell people for the first time that you have. What qualities do you have? What makes you tick? Where's your passion? What do you really love to do? Hopefully this is getting closer and closer to what you're after from your career. Then we really have to look at all of our activity in the future like a chessboard, and we have a chess game to play. And with a little bit of strategic sharing or strategic moves across that chessboard, we can change the entire game. But we've got to go back to how other people are judging us. So how do they judge us? What do they look at? Really, the flip side of that question is, what should I share? Well, you should share whatever you think is the right thing after you think about how they're judging you. So projects that I worked on, or projects that I initiated, or maybe ones I developed. You realize I'm beginning to split hairs in the level of credit we can go after. The nuance in the correct level of credit is incredibly important, as are the right words and verbiage that you use. Or maybe it's the results of those projects, or the level of accomplishment, or maybe it's the education, or books, articles, events. That's the bulk of what you'll share, actually, books, articles, and events that showcase you as endless wonder for your new field or your continued field, whichever it might be. So that's really how they're judging us. And as we share things, we tend to get caught up in this, like, well, who are my connections? Who are my connections? Oh, I get it. But it's not really about your connections. Look at this example here. I'm a happy guy down in the corner connected to another happy person. Great, fantastic. That's my connection. But regardless of what my connections do to their settings, every one of their connections are also in John's pool. Not my connections, but they're in my pool. And no matter what they do to their settings, every one of their connections are also in my pool. I get this 3-level network of connections. So when I share something out to the network, out to the ether, they don't tell me where it will go. But the algorithm that governs my destiny in life will sit there and look at my content of my profile. It'll look at the groups that I belong to. It'll look at the people that I'm interacting with and connected to, and it will look at what I'm sharing. And it will connect all those dots and go, oh, these people would love to see this content. Let the algorithm work for you. It does take a little bit of a leap of faith because we can't see it working until suddenly all the right things begin to happen for you. Now, in the end, you're going to have to create synergy across all of your materials. So this is not simply about your LinkedIn profile. Make sure your resume, your cover letter, your messaging, all your shares work synergistically together. And now let's open up that Pandora's box of endless marketing across whatever platforms you choose, whatever apps you choose to be the right ones, as long as you narrow your focus so you're not wasting more time than you have available. The time that I think you should make available to a social media marketing campaign is not more than about 15 total minutes per day. If you're spending more than that, you're really wasting a lot of time. Now, for social media to work, you can't really sell. Just did a lecture for the New York Public Library last week where it's really how to brand it and market your business using social media on LinkedIn. And the thing I had to remind everybody is no one wants to be directly sold on LinkedIn. And certainly no one wants to be directly sold right in your inbox on LinkedIn. Well, over 1,000 unopened messages in my LinkedIn inbox, clogged with endless spam of people trying to sell me. Don't try to sell on LinkedIn directly. It's about indirect selling. It's about building your brand, creating desire so they just have to reach out to you, or they have to respond to you when you reach out to them. which is that paradigm shift in marketing yourself to the decision maker I'm teaching next week. Key here is have to be authentic. You have to have integrity. You have to be genuine. Now that I've said that, let me just confess to you, as I have done many times in this last year over distance video here, I'm actually shy and introverted, no matter what you see here. My friends practically spit out their drinks when they hear me say that across the room or all over each other because they can't believe it. They've never seen it. They think it's a fantasy. They just didn't know me long enough. You never really stop being what you were. Oh, you may find your way out of it, but it's just below the surface, just a layer or two, skin deep before that shyness and introversion comes out. And yet this is what you see. This is what I do professionally. You're going to have to find a way to give yourself permission just to be organic, be authentic. This is still authentic and full of integrity and genuine, even though I'm still shy and introverted. You've got to find the wiggle room to allow yourself to represent yourself. That's part of it. Now, again, do your full personal inventory. Much, much more about this in the resume renovation lecture and the LinkedIn lecture. Rediscover all those career assets you want to talk about. Think about the projects, think about your story, think about whoever else you've been involved with. Could be even involve some of your meetups or outside activities, could involve community work, even things that are non-work related, could be exciting story elements that make people want to hire you. All of that content, you simply have to filter through a lens that will help you pick the right ones. The lens is clear. I talk about it in all of my lectures. It's why is it going to be the very best business decision they're going to make today, if they choose to either add you to this project or hire you, whatever it might be. So we have to put a lot of thought into that. And where possible, I'd certainly like to focus on stories that have these elements, whether that's about my actual performance or what's going on with the players in the industry or competitors or whatever might be happening. But my brain is on these issues in all the aspects that I might share, so they see me as a potential really great employee. Make sure all of your brand works across all of your materials. Not going to spend much time on that. A little bit extra on LinkedIn. This does not replace the full LinkedIn lecture. By the way, there's a special version of my LinkedIn lecture right on my Self-Recruiter homepage, about halfway down the page. You can see me large, see the slides large, use it as a start and stop tutorial while you improve your LinkedIn. As you see here, LinkedIn's de facto social networking website for our work life, but it's a few other things. It's these things in terms of today's lecture. Now, a business person would think of LinkedIn this way automatically, but you have to think of LinkedIn this way automatically. You have this career brand to manage forevermore, and we have to allow ourselves to be a little tiny bit of a Kardashian in the self-promotion, no matter how distasteful. Grew up Catholic, well, self-promotion, terrible, terrible. And look at me today. It's what we have to do, and don't claim more than you are due. That's the biggest key. Now, here's my numbers on LinkedIn from actually this week. 11,900 connections, about 21 million connections 3 levels out. When I share something, it could land on the desktop of any of those 21 million people. Let's be extra clear, not going to land on 21 million desktops. In fact, they don't really tell you where it will go. You have to trust the algorithm. If they told you where it would go, you'd work out how to game the system. But I'm really teaching you how to game the system with a blindfold on. Do the right thing, trust the algorithm, and it just works, drawing people back to your sales brochure, your profile. On your profile, make sure you have some basics when you get there. Make sure you are 500 plus. I'm at 470. 470 is not 500 plus. You must reach 501 connections. Mover, shaker, finger on the pulse. Anybody below that, toss to the side in the sorting process. Doesn't mean they'll all not get hired, but it's much faster to get hired when you're perceived with a rich network. In my LinkedIn lecture, I show you how to get to 501 connections. Even if you're at 0 today, I show you how to do it in 4 days. Watch the LinkedIn lecture, spend half an hour doing the homework assignment there. Boom, 501 connections in 4 days. That perception issue is now gone. Make sure your LinkedIn is visual. Yes, mine has a lot of me on it because I'm a public speaker. But imagine these are all things where they're looking over your shoulder to see what's going on in the industry, reading, doing, sharing, attending. What is getting you excited? That's why I should hire this person. Make sure you are actually sharing, because if you looked at your LinkedIn profile right now, I bet you're not sharing. Most people are not. You'll see this box, and then your posted activity, it'll just be an empty white box saying, well, this is what you've done in the last 90 days. Nothing. Nothing's drawing your attention. You're not interested in your field in the last 3 months. So hopefully you have 4, 5, 6 shares up here fairly quickly. So it will fill the box so people can begin to look over your shoulder to see what's drawing your attention. That's a perception management tool. Again, make sure to put as many of your own things in your feed as possible. Now, if we're marketing our way to a new job, yes, again, like I said, primarily we're talking about LinkedIn, Twitter, but you're going to have some other platforms you're going to have to consider. Value in every single word. Your wording, your verbiage is incredibly important. We're in a world where no one wants to read, so it has to be incredibly succinct. We're talking 4, 5, 6 words of opinion. We'll show you how all of it works, essentially to manage this nasty idea of perception being reality. And we can change reality simply by changing perception if we just work backward like a detective. Discover the steps, not too difficult. Let me take you through an entire social media marketing plan now so you can wrap your head around it. I'm going to break each one of these down so you really understand how it works out. But essentially, 2 hours of homework. We're going to build this content list of 25 to 30 items ready to share right now. All the homework done. It's going to be a mix in general of articles, books, and events. Pretty simple. Articles. I can go to Google. I can click the news tab. I can put in a few of the key players. I can put in a few of the challenges. I can put in a few of the terms from my field. I'm going to get articles all over the country that talk exactly about those things. Now I can cherry pick those articles, whatever their topics are. And by the way, the articles themselves do not have to be good articles. Oh, I'd like them to be better articles, but it really doesn't matter. Time is your enemy. No matter what article or book or event you choose, all you have to do is grab the title, put it in quotes. There it is. It's already there. Put it in quotes so the brain can grab it. Put the link behind it. So simple, so simple. 4, 5, 6 words of opinion in front of it. Imagine you thought you were the best of the best of the best at what you do. Okay. Gosh, you think a lot of yourself, don't you? I hope so. I hope so. We have to represent ourselves. If you are the best at what you do, you certainly would have shared a best practices technical white paper on what you do. By the way, you do not have to write that. There's a zillion papers already out there that somebody wrote on the best way to do your job. Just go pick any one of them. Doesn't matter. Good, bad, or ugly. Doesn't matter. Read it. That does matter. And then comment good, bad, or ugly on it. What a great take. There's my opinion. What a great take on exactly what I do with a link. Best practices for exactly what I do with a link. Not sure I agree with. Best practices for exactly what I do with a link. Couldn't disagree more with best practices for exactly what I do with a link. I can take any take I'd like. Do not spend all day looking for like the perfect article. No, your opinion is what I'm after. Opinion tagged to the article. Put these things in a big list. Oh, if 2 or 3 or 4 of them are really special, I can say, oh no, these 3 I want shared on a certain day. Okay. Put those on a calendar somewhere to remind yourself. The rest, I simply wake up in the morning, grab the first item on the list, copy, paste, share. At the same time, I got my first coffee. Later in the morning, I need another coffee. Oh, second coffee. Wait a minute. Copy, paste, share. Time for lunch. Copy, paste, share. Mid-afternoon coffee. Copy, paste, share. End of the day. Copy, paste, share. 2 minutes per day, about 10, 15 seconds per interaction, 2 minutes a day. You can have the entire thing. You do it like breathing. It really is that simple. May sound complex. So what am I sharing? What am I first talking about? Well, if you have actual things you can talk about that are tied to you, your work, your project, or your accomplishments, absolutely. But if not, it's these articles, books, white papers, things going on in your industry. And very likely you're going to have to even change how you speak about yourself. We tend to throw ourselves under the front tire of the bus far too often in conversation. You have to quit doing that and elevate yourself. So in terms of a share plan, I have to think like a storyteller. Don't mishear that word. I'm not telling stories. They have to be letter true. Everything I say must be letter true. As a storyteller, it's your job to set the stage, create the atmosphere. Do you notice this lecture today? I'm setting the stage, I'm creating the atmosphere. I am standing in a room all by myself. There's no feedback here. It's all created from what I've decided. You have to think the same way. Think about putting them in your shoes, looking out of your eyes. Tell everything as a non-confessional piece. Make sure every story illustrates some asset. Give yourself permission to look backward truthfully, but with very rose-colored glasses. Only the good stuff, all the bad stuff disappears. And the tone is about speaking to someone like, even in writing, like a dear old friend you haven't seen in 5 years. Oh, they're going to be warm, receptive to me. Yeah, that's the right tone, right approach. Again, it's nuance in communication, how you really nudge everybody figuratively just a little bit to draw and coax attention. That is the whole point. Let me showcase a few shares over the years for myself. So off to the left here, first year I was up on stage next to the Reverend Jesse Jackson at Rainbow Push Wall Street Project. Did it 4 or 5 years. It was a real blast. And this first year, and gosh, you can see my picture over on the right there. I'm so glad it's so small. So glad. That was a terrible week for John. Worst week for my father. My father was in hospice, passing away. And, I was going down on the weekends to Florida to see my dad. And he was so excited this was going on for me. And I had to fly back to do this event. That's a day I had about 2.5 hours sleep. Incredibly stressful because my father passed away later in the week. But you know what? Opportunity is knocking now. Opportunity knocks. It does not necessarily knock again. You have to respond. Now is the time. It doesn't matter whether this is the worst day for John or not. This is the time. So I made use of it. A couple negative articles down on the bottom, not very uplifting, exactly right for what I do. Over on the top right, that I went to one of the Google events during Social Media Week. Some radio show host had called me up saying, hey, going to the keynote at Google? I'm like, absolutely. When is it? Friday, 8 o'clock in the morning. Love to. See you there. And then they didn't show up. Another day, I had about 2.5 hours sleep because February actually is probably my busiest month of the year. Hard to find sleep sometimes. And again, 2.5 hours sleep. I wasn't speaking that day, but my gosh, did I wake up when I heard them saying up on stage, the real world is insufficient. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. That is it. That's what I've been trying to say. Not okay to only exist in the real world. You have to exist in the virtual world professionally too, or you literally do not exist in your profession. We have to think about that. Here I am up at WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio. Done that 4 or 5 times. It's 2 hours of drive time. The hosts themselves prepared nothing in advance, so it's all off the cuff. And of course, I love that style. I'm very good at that style. Tonight, I'm up in Albany. It has nothing really to do with what I do professionally, but I'm up in Albany on behalf of the library, lobbying for library funding. Now, let's be clear. I do not get library funding. That is volunteer work. So this is really 100% volunteer work to get the public and the library more support. So I posted that. Of course, featured in AM New York. Always like that over the years. Broke the regularly scheduled attendance record at the New York Public Library. I'm very competitive. Shy and introverted, but I still want to win. A couple more articles, all those kinds of things. And then, of course, got featured in Essence magazine. Well, I didn't get featured, but my book got featured. It was hard to find. I thought I was getting punked when I first got the call. You're in Essence magazine. I'm like, who is this? Maybe I should look. Of course, this was 2012. Magazine stores had already started to disappear from the city here. So it was hard to find one in the first place. And then I couldn't find this issue at first because Barack was on the cover. But my gosh, there's my book on the reading list. Oh, the shorter gal in the picture there. She's the one that got me into it. She happened to be standing outside the public library and said, oh, I'm blogging about my job search for Essence magazine. I'm like, oh my gosh, you should have my book. I can connect the dots very, very quickly. And I trusted it would find its way somewhere. Now, she was in that picture talking to some other career coach. Don't look there. My book on the reading list. So think about what can happen essentially from this process of moving away from being transactional. We're far too transactional. If I do this, what do I get? I don't know. I do know what you're going to get if you don't do anything different. I think we all know what you're going to get. So you have to really learn how to open the doors and leave those doors open. That's how I ended up on Arise TV and got some great footage there, working and having interaction with a really interesting TV producer after that. You have to learn to open every single door. It's part of your self-promotion, no matter how distasteful it is. That's part of the deeper influence about you. A few more shares of Morgan Stanley events, so I shared that one. Then I'm doing something for Grace Institute. That's a wonderful organization that helps a lot of the gals in the city here. You should take a look at them. Doing my online boot camp, still working to get that thing on a continual live basis on my website shortly. But here I'm doing an online version of it, and someone snapped a shot. I know my father would have loved that picture. He was a Catholic deacon. I saw him in that pose so many times. Again, up at WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio. That's a lot of fun. Think about all these things that you post that then change the perception of who you are or what you bring to the table. How are you going to frame it for projects that you've done that somehow illustrates something that somebody else would like to hire? Go back through and think about everything you've touched, even something like this. Oh, so negative. But you know what? It's a needed skill. And if I need an axe man, there we go. I have to hire one of those. Or maybe you're reading Social Media Marketing, An Hour a Day by Dave Evans. Oh, what a great book. By the way, it is a great book. I highly recommend it. I don't recommend other people's books very often. Developing a new project on, something that showcases your skill or depth in some field, or maybe even attending a lecture on social media marketing. I didn't have to say it was in terms of job search. Oh my gosh, let's get the credit. Everybody needs to attend a social media marketing lecture. It will help you. Nudge, nudge, nudge. You look better than the next candidate. You look more exposed. Small changes change perception. Even sharing praise and accolades can reflect some of that light back to you. Congratulations, Dave. I see you're reading Social Media Marketing, An Hour a Day by Dave Evans. What a great book. Really got me up to speed. Let's not forget those things. In terms of leadership and being seen that way, the easiest way to be a leader is simply to be a leader. What are you waiting for? You're waiting to be anointed from above? Now, I work for myself now. I've worked for many other people over the course of my lifetime. Every single time I have held a job working for someone else, I simply act like I own the company. Now, when I say that in an in-person lecture, part of the audience bursts out laughing because they imagine a steamroller walking in there as if they own the company. No matter what my role was, I act like that's my money invested. I grew up in small business, so you have a different approach. The whole family's livelihood is on the line. If you do your job as if that's your money invested, you will do your job in a very different way. And that also led to me getting promoted about every 4 to 5 months, which was a breakneck speed, causing chest pains because of the stress level of what they were putting on my plate. But you know what? I wasn't fooling those people. I wasn't kidding those people. They knew exactly what I brought to the table, but they were amazed at what I could deliver. Put one more thing on there. Put one more thing on there. Something needs solving, something unresolved, something not developed or needs to be developed or rethought, something unmet. What are you waiting for? Propose something. I've never, ever allowed myself to be limited by some ridiculous 8.5 by 11 sheet of job description. That's the starter idea for my job. You hired me and my brain for this job. That's a little like, here's how to get started. Everything we put out there about ourselves, all communications, becomes part of social media, including even your signature block. There's my ridiculously long signature block. First time I wrote this thing, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, oh, what would my mother think? Wow, John, looks like you made it. I know it's very hard, unless we're Kardashian, to put this out there. But you know what? Once you've earned it, you've built it, you owe it to yourself and your family to use it with your ego in check. It may seem like the ego's out of control, but keep your ego in check. That will keep you valuable. Yours could be as simple as something like this. The whole goal of your signature block is to be professional. So certainly have to have your name, your title, or how you see yourself, your positioning title if you're not working, your contact information so they don't have to go searching for it. You know how many emails I get requesting information or things, and there's no contact information whatsoever. Okay, so you didn't think it was important to provide me any contact information. At the very minimum, I'd like to guide them to my very important LinkedIn profile. Now, these were written years ago. View my LinkedIn profile at. Long since switched to connect with me on LinkedIn at. Yes, everything has to evolve. Motivate them to do what you want. This is how they have to see us. It's by putting together this 2 hours of homework, going and getting the books, Barnes & Noble or Amazon, got a link, got everything. Going and get the events. Every event in the next 30, 60 to 90 days going on for your industry already has a website, already has a link. Go to Google News tab, get the articles, begin to constantly really be the magnet for what's going on in your field. They can see everything going on in your field simply by looking to see what you're doing. Your job is to be persuasive, engaging, be ready, be confident. And that brings us to the very end of today. It is not very difficult to run a social media marketing campaign. It seems like it because of the way we make this mystery. It is as simple as distill that message down to a few words of opinion, title in quotes, link afterward, keep it simple, rapid fire 4, 5, or 6 times per day when I'm in job search. I go to wherever I stopped that day, go to sleep. I wake up in the morning, begin right again, keep going down the list. When I get to the bottom of the list, I go right back to the top and I keep using this list of 25 to 30 items for 6 to 8 weeks. Nobody can see a repeat statistically. You cannot worry about that. They will not see it. If it happens to you, you got struck by lightning. Doesn't happen to too many people. At the end of 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 40% of this list has to disappear, not because of time, just because of some other staleness. Maybe 60% still good. Maybe I have to do another hour homework to refresh that list back up to 25 to 30 items that I can then use for another 6 to 8 weeks. You get how quickly this has an effect. All of these shares combined with all of your content, which is very similar on your profile, combined with who you've connected with in the groups, combined with who you've connected to as individuals, all of that teaches the algorithm exactly where all those shares should land. So let's take that leap of faith. Thank you guys for joining in today. Wherever you are, whether it's your first step or your next step, take it. It's just in front of you and learn to repeat. Tomorrow, we are doing supercharging your job search. That is how to organize and manage and control your job search. The more you organize and manage and control it, the more likely you are to get to a place of multiple offers so that you have choice in your job search. Tune in tomorrow. That is at 11 a.m. And then a very special Ask Self Recruiter on Friday. That is the Ask Self Recruiter Q&A. If you'd like your questions answered, send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com, ask@selfrecruiter.com. Best ones are always included in the Ask Self Recruiter Q&A sessions, and the next one is on Friday at 11 a.m. See you guys tomorrow and on Friday, and I hope you have a great week. Take care.